Hello, everybody. Josh Neighbors here, Locked On Big 12 podcast. Today it is the 16th of May, 2022. On the show today, it is our first Monday Mailbag. We'll be doing a mailbag every single Monday from now until the beginning of the college football season. We're about, I think, 110 days away right now from that first Saturday for the at least Big 12 teams. And so you guys can send us questions on Twitter. You guys can send us questions on YouTube. We've got some of those today. We're talking about TV options for the Big 12, specifically Paramount Plus, Texas being back, what that really means, what would that look like this season, and also pods versus divisions versus nothing at all in terms of how conferences in the Big 12 will look in the future. Your questions coming up on today's show.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Once again, Josh Neighbors here, Locked On Big 12 podcast. Glad you all are with us today. Make sure you find us on Twitter at LO Big 12. You guys can follow me at Josh Neighbors _. You guys can find the show wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as well. So yes, once again, it's our first Monday mailbag. You guys can send in your questions throughout the week by just commenting on our videos. That's one way to get your questions into me. Also, you guys can reply on Twitter. I'll put out a tweet towards the weekend for Monday mailbag questions, and you guys can put them on there. Also, our community tab has a place as well for you all to put your questions. We have a bunch sent to us this week. We've got 3 that we're really going to tackle today. Thank you guys for sending your questions. My chair is falling down. I'm going to, boom, pop right up right there. And now we're good to go. So the first question that we got, I'll put it on the screen here, comes from John Coy. He says, as far as TV deals go, I would like to see CBS and Paramount Plus land the Big 12. CBS will look for a replacement for the SEC going to ESPN and ABC. I would like to hear takes on this topic. So it's a very good question. And this one's going to take some understanding of the current media landscape, right? So the way you have to look at it is, where are the major conferences positioned and where are the major TV companies positioned? So right now you have the ACC. They have got their contract with ESPN, and that's going to take them through a very long time. So, there's really nothing you have to worry about on the ESPN, on the ACC contract front right now. On3 has a really good article about this. The ACC is with the ESPN through 2036. The Big Ten has a deal that is $2.64 billion with ESPN and Fox that expires in 2023. We've heard Kevin Warren talking about this and where this deal might be. And, we've heard figures tossed around, so there's questions here. Will Fox go all in on that? And I think that would be the best thing for other conferences if one company goes all in on something like Fox. That's going to set up more opportunities for your Pac-12s, for your Big 12s down the line to get somewhere else. If this thing gets distributed out, to a bunch of places, if the Big Ten goes a bunch of different places, then those places might not feel the need to go pick up other stuff, other inventory, if you will, because they feel like they might have their bases covered, right? The Apple TV Plus of the world, if Fox gets a little of it, maybe Fox might say, hey, we want some more. But I think, for the people who are just getting into the spaces, they may not want to take a huge swing and miss, or a huge swing, I should say. Who knows? But the Big Ten is really the conference to watch at this point in time with their TV situation and how that is going. So there's one league. The Big 12, they expire in 2025. And so they'll have basically 2023 or 4 is when they'll be in that exploratory phase of looking for new places for that television contract. I'm just going to the Power 5 right now. The Pac-12, 12-year, $3 billion contract with Fox and ESPN that expires in 2024. So they are next up for that exploratory phase. I expect that to be coming up here pretty shortly. The Pac 12 is actually meeting today. That I'm 110% sure is going to be on the docket for them. So that's where the Pac 12 is at, Fox and ESPN. And then the SEC, ESPN, and they've just inked their deal moving forward. They made an extension of that deal. So they're going to go to 2034 right now, and they're going all out on that after taking basically the entire package at that point. Notre Dame's the other big one, right? Everybody knows Notre Dame obviously is a huge brand, 10-year contract extension in 2013. Then the extension that began in 16. So they signed it in 13. They kicked in 16. So they'll be up until 2025. So around the same time as the Big 12 is when that will come up. And then the college football playoff is $470 million through 25 and 26 right now. So that is something that could be changing here in the very near future on that front. So that's something that we definitely have to watch in that respect. All right, so that kind of gets us to the question of, okay, where will these things go? So as I mentioned before, the Big Ten, if they were to go to all in on Fox, that would be a good sign, because think about the players right now for these sports. ESPN, obviously, Fox is there, CBS is there. Then so those are your big three right there, right? Those are your big three companies that are really all in for this kind of stuff. Then that gets you now to the next part is the streaming companies. So right now are the streaming companies that we can think about? Let's see. Peacock is there right now. In addition to Peacock, you've got Apple TV Plus, you've got Paramount Plus, you've got Hulu, you've got Netflix. So those are really the big ones right now. Now, sure, you got your HBOs and your Showtimes. I don't think Showtime, I'm a pretty big combat sports fan. I don't think Showtime would be going in on this. I don't think HBO would be going in on this. I don't think those are places we're going to see it go. So you kind of, the three that you think about next are Apple TV Plus, Peacock, and actually four, lest we forget Amazon Prime. They're getting in the NFL space as well. My chair just keeps falling. Unbelievable. Falling down. We got to take a big rise right back up. Boom. There we go. If you're watching on the audio, you guys, or the video, you guys just saw me shoot up there. So yeah, I mean, the big streamers, Peacock, Apple TV Plus, Amazon Prime, and Paramount Plus. Hulu and Netflix are the ones that you think about next. Hulu says they have live sports. They just I don't think they carry live sports that are off like other networks, right? There's a reason why they had Damian Lillard doing those commercials. There's nothing that's special on certain networks. The ones you can also throw in, YouTube as well. You can throw in there. YouTube does have a contract where they air Major League Baseball games, so I guess they should be thrown in too. But the big ones right now that are subscription services that are vying for more content that already have properties, it's Peacock, it's Apple TV Plus, it's Paramount Plus. It's those are the ones, Amazon Prime, right? Those are the ones that we know for sure already have product. Now, the one you have to understand, and this question from John is about Paramount Plus, because all this stuff is really tangled together. The thing about Paramount Plus you have to understand is they do air college football on there. It's just not specific to Paramount Plus. So they air, I think you can watch CUSA, MAC, Mountain West, and right now SEC, all of those that are streamed on CBS Sports Network and that are streamed on CBS proper. You can catch those on Paramount Plus as it sits right now, but they're not exclusive to Paramount Plus. Paramount Plus really is heavy into soccer. They've got Champions League and Europa League, and I believe Serie A, the Italian league as well. All of those that you can watch on Paramount Plus. That seems like a space that definitely could be is definitely one that you could look into. I would say that there's going to be a trade-off, right? I was actually just working a show this morning. I was working Pac-12 this morning for Sirius XM. And the one thing that George Kliavkoff had told us a while ago is that he thinks the next round of television contracts are still going to be linear cable because there is a big risk that a lot of your stuff might not get seen. So while Paramount Plus might fork up the cash to you, while CBS and Viacom might say, hey, we want this package where we put some of it on CBS, but put some of it on CBS Sports and put some of it on Paramount Plus exclusively. The one risk you run is there is a swath of people in this country who aren't sure what Paramount Plus is, who have no interest in learning what Paramount Plus is, do not want to download Paramount Plus on their computer, and they sure as hell don't want to pay $5.99 extra. I think it's what I pay right now, $5.99 extra, or whatever it might be. It might be more than that once they add college football to the mix. They don't want to be paying for that. Now, that'll test, hey, how much do you care about your team? I think some people would come around, but there is a group of people that just aren't going to watch it. Streaming numbers are just not as good as TV numbers. It's just a fact, right? And even on the TV scale, like ESPN's numbers are never good as games on ABC. Fox Sports numbers are never good as on Fox, and CBS Sports numbers are never as good as the ones on CBS proper. Those channels always, always, always will have the upper hand. Just because they are so ingrained into our kind of television culture, if you will. So I think that's the one that you have to think about. And that doesn't just apply to Paramount Plus. And I like Paramount Plus. I think it's got a pretty good interface. It is choppy at times. ESPN Plus the same way. A lot of us Big 12 fans are already watching on ESPN Plus, I should say. I do like Paramount Plus's platform. I think it's good. It looks good. I think it's clean. I don't find it that difficult to navigate. There are some things they clean up, but I don't find it too hard to navigate. So I do like that as an option. It's run by obviously Viacom CBS. It's obviously a huge operation behind that. So it's a bit more established. You're not really going towards an Apple TV Plus model where they're new in the game, right? I don't know if, I've watched some of the Apple TV Plus broadcasts for baseball. They're fine. They're good. YouTube's baseball broadcasts for MLB, they're fine. They're good. But these are, we call them truck games, right? In the business, they'll call them truck games, right? They send the whole crew, they got a television truck outside there. They got all the people in. I mean, these are large undertakings. And I know for a fact now that Paramount Plus has done those before, right? They're doing that for soccer. You think, right? There's more angles, obviously, in football than soccer, but Paramount Plus is doing a bit of that. Also, they're backed by CBS, so I know for a fact that they know how to do truck games and things of that nature. So, as a safe commodity, I would say Paramount Plus is going to be a good one. I think for sure. They're going to want to put something on CBS and CBS Sports, but I do think that whatever it is they pick up, they're going to want to do some of it exclusively on Paramount Plus. And with that normally comes big games, right? ESPN Plus had a lot of big games for basketball this year. And I think some people went out and bought it because of that. But you put big football on Paramount Plus, people are going to go watch. You put you put matchups like Texas OU, just for example, or you put a BYU versus a Cincinnati in a year that they're pretty good. You put an Oklahoma State versus TCU, right, in a year where they're pretty good. You put those on Paramount Plus. They're going to do good numbers on their, they're going to try to draw you to that. They want to put the big games in those spots, Baylor TCUs, Baylor Oklahoma States, whatever it is that you can, think of, Kansas State for basketball. They're going to want to put those big games there. So that's something you have to think about on that front, right? That's something that you have to consider, visibility of all of this. That's a huge thing, visibility. Are you willing to trade visibility for money? Does that make it more competitive? You have to measure all of those things. But I still think Paramount Plus is a known commodity. I think CBS Sports and Paramount Plus will be a really good landing spot. I don't know about ESPN and ESPN Plus because they've got a lot of content right now. If they lose, so they just keep the SEC, but they lose the Big Ten, and maybe let's just say they lose the Pac-12. Yeah, they'll be hunting for somebody else. The problem is the Big 12 actually going to have a problem. We'll see how it works out. They're going to be later on in the game, right? They're going to be around when Notre Dame is. So they'll be out of the four that are going to come up here, three that are going to come up here. Big 10, Pac-12, and Big 12. The Big 12 is going to be the last one to come up available. They'll be right there with Notre Dame. Once again, big commodity too. So we'll see how things shake out. a lot of this is going to be determined by how those things shake out, right? A lot of this is going to be set up by where Pac-12 goes and where the Big Ten goes, and who else now wants the college football content. All right, so next question that we'll get to here in 1 second is about Texas. But first, we'll take a quick break, hear a word from our sponsors. Today's show is brought to you by Built Bar. Go to built.com today. That's built.com. Use the promo code LOCK15, LOCKED15, LOCK15, and you guys can get 15% off at built.com today. They've got these new birthday cake puffs, which I highly recommend. They are delicious. They've got birthday cake frosting on them. Also, they're only 150 calories and 16 grams of protein. I just got mine. They're very good. I've had a bunch of them. I'll probably have one after I go for a walk here after I do this podcast. Once again, go to built.com today. That's built.com. Use the promo code LOCK15, LOCKED15, LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com today. All right, so last week you all sent me a bunch of comments because of stuff that I have said about how I am on Texas, saying that Texas is back, Texas is back. Where have I heard this before? Texas is back, Texas is back. Look, I'm not saying Texas is back. Also, I love to invite everybody to, like, what does Texas back means? Texas since 1990 they've won 32 conference championships in total. They've only won 5 of them since 1990. They have not won one since 2009. So what does back mean? Like, I'm like, if back is winning conference titles and competing for championships, no, I'm not saying that they're winning conference titles and competing for national championships. I don't think they are. I have not said that. What I do, and I'm going to say this again, I think because of the talent level they have, and you might say they've had talent before. Yeah, not when they had like Sam Ehlinger and Tyrone Swopes and Casey Thompson at quarterback. Like, that's not doing it for me, man. I'm sorry. It's just not going to do it for me. That's not good enough. This is elite talent across the board. Their line needs work, but they got a lot of talent. The defensive line needs work. They got a lot of talent. They need to work, obviously, a lot on defense. But in terms of offense, for a coach in Steve Sarkisian, who's done a great job, directing offenses, like, this team has a real good chance to succeed. So I'm not out here to tell you all that Texas is back. That is not my goal. I just wanted to do this question real quick because it's not really an actual question that we've had. It's just more people say, I'm not saying Texas is back. I'm not doing that. I don't take pleasure in Texas winning. I just think that this year in the Big 12, they have to be considered as one of the favorites to win this league because of the amount of talent and the amount of questions everybody else has to ask. You might throw at me, they were a 5-7 team last year. Yeah, Baylor was a 2-win team the year before, and they went out and won the conference, right? So, you can have it if you want to have it that way. I've heard the 5-7 argument before. Have it that way. Oh, unproven head coach, Dave Aranda, unproven head coach also as well, right? Steve Sarkisian's, talked in the past. Well, it's a little bit different now. I mean, we've seen his offense elevate to a high level, and also this level of talent is the highest level in the conference at running back, at quarterback, at wide receiver. Go and check the lists for best running back in the country for the draft next year, NFL draft. Number 1 running back, Bijan Robinson. Go check a top 10 wide receivers going into the next season. I've seen Xavier Worthy 4, 3, 5, 6. He's in the top 10. And basically every single list you check, he's a top 10 guy. They brought in obviously a lot of talent too. Isaiah Nayer is a kid a lot of people wanted. Jai Hall and Jaleel Billingsley. We'll see Jordan Whittington is there also. Roshan Johnson in the backfield. Quinn Ewers. Like, this team is mega talented. There are no excuses anymore. This team, I think, will come through and I think win around 9 games this year, 9 to 10, and put themselves at this point. I think they're going to be in the Big 12 championship game. That's what I think right now. I'm not proclaiming Texas is back. I'm just putting, my faith right now in some of the most established talent that we have in this conference because there's so many questions with talent elsewhere. If you want to back a different horse, that's fine. But the Texas is back garbage, like, it needs to stop. It really does need to stop because every team is different. This team feels much different than the teams they've had in the past. They bring Gary Patterson, which is a huge influence to have alongside Pete Kwiatkowski, try to clean things up and game plan on the defensive side. We'll see if this team, they know they have a problem finishing games. They're winning a lot of them last year. Let's see what they do this year. So I'm just saying it has to be talked about, them being a favorite in this league. Look, Vegas agrees with me. Vegas season was a top 2 team in this league, all right? And those chandeliers in Vegas, man, they're not made of gold for any reason, right? Maybe they're trying to sucker me into the bet, but I'm just saying they think that's a team that should be valued pretty highly when it comes to the Big 12 this year. Just, their odds with OU are not that far apart. Wouldn't be shocked if money comes in on Texas and they become the odds-on favorites to win the league. So that should be noted. All right, one more quick word from our sponsors, and then we'll talk pods, divisions, etc. Today's show is brought to you by BetOnline and BetOnline.net. You guys can go to BetOnline today and bet on those odds that we showed you all last week for who will win the Big 12 in 2022. You guys can find those odds. You guys can bet on other conferences as well. NHL playoffs, NBA playoffs, F1, NASCAR, whatever you guys want to bet on, they've got at BetOnline and BetOnline.net today. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. All right, so final question we got was about pods and how we think they break things up in the Big 12. We've talked about divisions, a lot of things. I heard Brennan Marcello talk today, and we're going to hit this even more tomorrow in our round table. But it seems like everything is trending towards divisions going away. And the only people that don't want divisions to go away are the coaches in places like the ACC Coastal, where the division's not very strong. It's a good recruiting tool if you could win your division at 7-5 and go and say, yeah, you got a chance to play for a conference title here, although it wasn't that impressive. It's also imperative for conferences like the Big 12 moving forward to get their best two teams in their conference championship game. That is why it is so vital for the Big 12, I think, and I've thought about this, I've gone back and forth. I thought divisions was the best way to do it, just to make sure Texas and OU maybe weren't in the title game near their last year here if they stayed for the divisions. Also, I thought it'd be easier to organize. But I've come around to the idea that I don't think they should do divisions. I really don't think they should at this point. It was fun to draw a map, and it was fun to go through that exercise and that activity. But really, for a conference that's going to be fighting for national relevance, I think the best thing that they can do, and look, that they will be. I mean, I believe in the quality of this conference, but the national narrative right now is that this thing is going to, it's going to go not down the tank, but it's going to take a step back. The best thing the Big 12 can do for itself, just like the Pac-12, is give themselves every single opportunity to go out there and compete and get themselves in a college football playoff, and maybe even get two teams in the college football playoff. This year, if there was a 12-team playoff, and trust me, folks, that thing is going to expand. The college football playoff will expand. The best chance the Big 12 had, in my opinion, they would have had two teams this year. Like, that would have been a great opportunity. And if they want to keep giving themselves the best chance, this is the best way to do it. So Oklahoma State and Baylor would have been in a 12-team playoff. Playoff expansion is coming. I think the best way that this conference can make sure they have as many teams contending, competing in the mix as possible is if they go to a no division round robin situation, kind of like they're doing now, best they can do. Now that brings up the pod idea. And so people might not understand, like, what does it mean by pods? You have a 4-team tournament at the end of the year, like winning your pod. No. The pod system is a way just to say you're playing these same teams every single year, right? So the Big 12's, it would go to once it goes to 12 teams again. Once again, we're not sure if it's done, but like once you go to a 12-team Big 12, what you would do is, and I'm talking long term here, not talking about OU and Texas still being there, but long term, a 4-team pod, 4-team pods would be a good situation. You keep 3 rivals. So I'm just doing sake of argument here. Let's just say Houston's in there with Texas Tech, TCU, and Baylor. There you go. Those 4 teams are in a pod. So you'd keep those 3 games every year, and you'd play 6 teams from the other 2 pods, right? So there's 12 teams in the league. You'll play 3 teams from your pod. If you're playing a 9-game conference schedule, you'd go and you'd then play, 3 teams from one pod and 3 teams from another pod. You got your 9. Your pod, 3 teams from one pod, 3 teams from another pod. Or you play all 4 teams from one pod, and then you supplement 2 more from the next pod. I'm not sure how exactly it would work, but that would create a system to where you were able basically to keep some natural rivalries, to play some of the same teams over and over again, but not as much visibility, I guess you could say, and maybe some teams that avoid teams some year, which, it's going to happen in this big of a league. So I'm actually fine with. But that's how pods will work. Or you could just do the straight up, you could just say, hey, you're going to keep this game in the schedule, right? TCU plays Baylor every year. Mandatory, must happen. Everything else flows. So the other 8 games are against the 10 remaining teams, and it flips. And, you skip 2 of them every single year, right? I think that's where this is headed for the Big 12. Maybe they do divisions the first year of the new Big 12 teams because OU and Texas are still there. But I think that there's a good chance that if they do that, the next year that's gone. I don't think they keep 2 divisions. I just think because everybody else is doing this, the Big 12 needs to make sure they give themselves the best possible chance to have a team in the college football playoff. And they do that by making sure the 2 best teams are playing in the conference championship game at the end of the year. So maybe divisions 1 year for OU and Texas if it's a 14-team league. Once they leave, I'm saying pods or just schedule it down and you miss a couple every single year. So that is my take on it. We'll see how this shakes out, though. But Brandon Marcello seemed to think that announcement from the ACC is coming here pretty soon. The Big Ten has kicked that around. I know schools like Iowa don't love that because it makes the path for them to make the Big Ten championship game, a little bit. It makes it's much more difficult for them. But at the same time, there are other schools like Michigan State where it does help them out because and now everybody else is having to play the same level of competition that they are. They're having to play the Penn States of the world. They're playing the Michigans of the world. They're playing the Ohio States of the world. So I think that's where this is heading. I think most of the conferences, Pac-12 included, I think everybody, ACC, although the ACC coastal folks might not like it, I think we're going to pods or not, just non-divisions basically. All right, that will do it for today's show. Thank you guys for all of your questions. Appreciate you all sending us those. We'll have more of those coming up next Monday as well. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at at LO Big 12, at LO Big 12. You guys can also find me on Twitter at Josh Neighbors _. Till next time, my friends, as always, stay safe.